In fact, it may do real harm to our relationship with one another. We wish we could make our teenagers feel and behave a certain way, but truly the best thing we can do is to guide from a respectful distance, because teenagers have to find their own way, and they're going to anyway. Art speak is like that kind of parenting from a respectful distance. It leaves room. And if it opens the possibility that receivers will come to different and perhaps unintended conclusions than we would wish, so be it. Because why? Because passivity is the real devil to be avoided at all costs. Nothing good comes from passivity, from torpor, from dullness. We need to enliven, not deaden, with our work if we have any hope of engendering change, which is why participation is so crucial. Let me put it this way. Do we want to beat our friends and neighbors into passive submission, or do we want to grow side by side with them? Some of you may know the work of the anthropologist Victor Turner, who's a key figure in my performance studies world. Turner took Van Gennep's concept of liminality to refer to the space that opens up as we pass from one stage of life to another during rites of passage. He used this concept to highlight the thrilling potential of performance to enact transformation. Turner used this concept in relation to rites or rituals, but I don't think it's a stretch to replace the word ritual with performance or art or even art speak. Basically, my argument is that art speak opens the space for contemplation, for self-assessment, for inner realignment, for reintegration, and ultimately, for change. No doubt some of you may be thinking that my critique of EE is off base, and that good EE, and by the way, I've heard that expression a lot, that good EE, in fact, does exactly what I'm attributing here to art speak, that it sparks creativity, it's open-ended, it's participatory. And it's true that over these past 3 days, I've learned about several projects that seem to me to resonate with the qualities that I'm speaking of here in relation to art speak. I love, for example, Peter Roberts' radio diaries for people living with HIV in Malawi. I love them. I love Vandana Sood's zany taxi takes project with cab drivers in Mumbai and New York talking culture and politics with their riders. The participation that's fundamental to PCI Media Impact projects, simply fantastic. I'm particularly struck by the enlivening quality of that notion that they have of collective creation, which reminds me of the energy of the ACT UP style visual art collectives from the late 1980s and early 90s in the US, or the Treatment Action Campaign in South Africa. But from the perspective of this outside infiltrator, the Achilles heel of EE is that it can too easily fall into a deadening formula. And what I'm suggesting is that art speak could breathe some life back into it. Thank you.
Thank you, David from UCLA. Our next speaker is Dr. Malika Sarabhai, who many of us saw last night in a wonderful dance performance. And now we will get to know another side of her. Dr. Sarabhai is an internationally acclaimed performance artist, social activist, producer, and director who has championed the use of arts as an integrator for social change for many years. Since 1978, she has been the director of the Darpana Academy, a multi-arts institution in Ahmedabad, which under her leadership has become one of the leading institutions in creating an innovative way to engage communities in tackling social and environmental issues. She has created programs in every conceivable genre: fiction, soaps, videos, music, chat, games, with development and empower as the focus, but always entertaining enough to hold the viewer. Her work has won many awards, including the Padma Bhushan from the Governor of India, the Chevalier des Arts, des Lettres from the Government of France, the International Lifetime Achievement Award by the International Congress of Women, the Crystal Award by the Davos World Economic Forum, the UNFPA Ladli Media Award for Gender Sensitivity, and many, many more. So let's go ahead and hear directly from Dr. Sarabhai.
Good morning. Just a correction. It's the same side of me that's speaking this morning as was performing last night. There is only one side. Before I even start, I had a couple of questions this morning about what was I talking about last night, that there are people here who come from backgrounds where the whole issue of actually selling off your daughter with a dowry doesn't exist. So just to clarify, last night, in many parts of the world, when a daughter of the house gets married, you give, in fact, what is a trousseau. The West has a sweet way or euphemistic way of saying trousseau, but it's basically the same thing. It's just that in many parts of the world, we changed that from being something given as love to something that we traded in, something that we used as an economic leverage. And in its worst case scenarios, as in every part of India today, it's something that you kill off your wife so that you get another lot of money and goods from the next wife and the next. And there's a very famous case in Delhi of a man who killed his first wife. The wife's family took him to court, and by the time the case was heard 22 years later, he had gone through 4 other wives and killed them all. And he was a very rich man by the end of it. The case is still going on, so we don't know whether he will ever go to jail, but that's history. I agree entirely with what David said, which is that we have a tendency of seeing very worthy but extremely boring arts work in the name of entertainment education. However worthy the work is, if it has to be relevant, it has to be passionate. It cannot come out of statistical analysis of what behavior change in various parts of the world is. It cannot. It can marry with art. It can marry with a creative impulse. But there is too much work going on, I know about this country, but I'm sure it's everywhere, which is NGOs using the arts badly so that the audience comes away thinking, what bad theater? And that gives the arts a terribly bad name. And it makes art dead. Yes, you do need to tell people that they need to use condoms. Of course you do. But let it come to them as a possibility rather than hammered on the head. So that if at the end of a film you have made or at the end of a 20-minute performance piece, even if there are members of the audience who get irritated as crazy, that's still fine because you have moved them out of their complacency. Today, what is really killing society and stopping development is this complacency. We know it. We don't need to hear about violence. We don't need to hear about HIV. We know it. Or don't tell us about violence against women. Or we know all about that. How is it that you can plant another seed into their heads so that next time they are eating their toast and butter and reading in the newspapers about yet another woman raped, they won't do it with the same equanimity as they did before they saw whatever you showed them? I think that's a very crucial part. And this can only come from passion and from what David calls the creative urge. Whoops. That's passion for you. There's so much I could talk to you about because I have spent my life in using the arts as a language because I think it's the most potent language. I was a little girl when I saw my mother create the piece you saw last night. And I grew up, stupidly, in some sense, thinking that all the arts were a language. And for me, that is what the arts are, whether it's a painting or a storytelling session or whatever. And that's where India comes from. The arts in India have traditionally, from the last 2,000 years, been used to talk about rites of passage, to talk about good from evil, to talk about things that you need to know as somebody growing up in what should be an ethical society, what should be a caring society. And it's only in the last 100 years, with the influence of the West, that we have made the arts into entertainment. The cherry on the cake rather than the yeast in the cake, which it should be for a better society. I just have 3 short excerpts to show you, to share with you the kind of range of work we do, which goes from peer-educated work or community work where we take members of a particular community, we train them, we upgrade their skills, we train them as communicators, but more importantly as artists, as people who can bring in from their own cultures to talk about an issue by perhaps putting a sting in the tail of a story that's very well known, or changing songs in a traditional ritual. Like, for instance, when women get pregnant the 7th month in India, in all communities, there's a particular ritual after which they are sent back to their mothers' homes. And we did an experiment in Gujarat, my state, where we took these songs, which were very innocuous songs that didn't really talk about anything, and we kept the tunes, we kept everything, but we changed the words to give information about nutrition and about inoculation and what to do immediately after the baby was born. And 5 years from that, today the villagers don't even remember that there were songs that were otherwise. These are the songs that are embedded into their psyche as being part of this ritual. So on the one hand, there's that kind of work, and I'd like you to show you some community work, and I especially brought something on health, on safe water, because there is such a strong thrust here towards public health. Can I have my first video, please? I had requested that you leave the menu on so that you don't waste time.
જો આ મશીન તો કેટલું મોંઘું આવે બેટા, એના કરતા આ તારે લાકડા બાળવાની જરૂર નહીં કે ગેસ બાળવાની જરૂર નહીં અને મશીન લાવવાની જરૂર નહીં, અને આપણને ચોખ્ખું પાણી મળે ને એવો રસ્તો છે મારી જોડે. બોલ દાદાજી. હા
કેવો રસ્તો બતાવો ને.
જો તારી જોડે પેલી સુતરાવ સાડી પડી છે એ લઈ આવ, જા જા.
દાદાજી મને પણ કોને ઉપાય? દાદાજી
કોને બેટા, તને પણ કહું છું.
લો દાદા સાડી.
હા સાડી ચોખ્ખી છે ને બેટા?
હા દાદા ચોખ્ખી છે.
તો હવે છે ને હું કહું એમ કર, આના 8 પડવાળ આવે.
સર દાદા.
અને બેટા તું ગણજે, મને ગણતા નહીં. 1 2 3 4 પડવડા, પાણીમાંથી કચરો દૂર કરાય. 1 2 3 4 પડવડા, પાણીમાંથી કચરો દૂર કરાય. 5 6 7 8 પડવડા, પાણી એકદમ ચોખ્ખું થાય. 5 6 7 8 પડવડા, પાણી એકદમ ચોખ્ખું થાય.
દાદા આ વળી ગયા સાડીના 8 પડ.
હા, અને આ તૈયાર થઈ ગઈ આપણી સુતરાવ સાડીની ગરણી.
As you know, drinking water and the kind of illnesses that come with drinking water in India is a very, very, very crucial issue. And the WHO had said that everybody who has a cotton sari or dhoti in the house can actually reduce bacteria and other impurities by as high as 85 or 90%. This was a project for that. On the other extreme is the kind of work you saw yesterday, which is not created for a community. It's created as our performance work. And we go everywhere with it. We go to the Smithsonian one day, we are showing it in regular theaters the next day, we are invited to show it to a corporate audience the 3rd day. We do it because I feel very strongly that there are prejudices embedded in all of us, which we need to look at. And this is a piece I created in 1996. It's called V for ... to say that violence is the V that is in every society today, not victory. And this is a short excerpt from that piece. And we have performed this piece in 40 countries over 3,000 times.
Look at you. You are peaceful people. Your parents were peaceful people. Your grandparents were peaceful people. So much peace in one place. How could it be otherwise? But what if, yes, what if one little gene in you has been trying to get through from your beginnings in Africa to each generation? They've been passed on to you in your creation. It's a secret urge hiding deep in you. And if it's in you, it's in me too. Oh dear. It's what made you snatch your baby brother, snap on a cockroach, scratch your mother. It's the feeling that wells up from deep inside when your husband comes home drunk and you wanna built-in protection. Adrenaline kill, it will give you the will. Yes, you better face it, cause you can't displace it. You are E-I-O-L-E-I-T, cause you're either a victim or on top, like me.
I'm going to jump straight into our television work, and because my time is running out, I'm going to talk over it. Can we have the third section, please? Television is about the closest you can get to the Indian family, because every household has a television. They may not have a house, but they have television. So for 3 years, we tried begging for funding to, please continue that. Okay, no, leave the volume on. I'll talk over it, thank you. Using every genre of television, from soaps to quizzes to music videos. And these are 3 music videos that went out. We've also distributed them as DVDs, but these are 3 on gender.
देश में बेटी अगर बेआबरू नाशाद है, दिल पे रख कर हाथ कहिए देश क्या आजाद है, देश क्या आजाद है। जिनका पैदा होना ही अपशकुन है, नापाक है। जिनका पैदा होना ही अपशकुन है,